Explanation of the poem A Photograph, written by Shirley Tolson. In this, the poet recalls her mother and her memories while looking at her childhood photograph when her mother was 12-year old or so. She has been deceased 12 years ago and she cannot explain her grief on her mother's loss. So, before let's understand the stanzas and the poem also. Line 1 to 4. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, with each one holding one of my mother's hand. In line 1 to 4, the poet is looking at an old photo album which is made up of cardboard. In the picture, there are three girls who are walking on the beach holding each other's hand. The girl in the middle is the tallest and oldest. The other two girls on each side are younger than her. The girl in the middle is the poet's mother. She is around 12 years old when the picture was taken. And she, the big girl, some 12 years or so, all three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born, and the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. In line 5 to 9, all three stood still to smile through their hair. So, in the above lines, the poet describes how the photograph was taken. Her mother's uncle took the photograph and told them to stop and pose. All three of them left their wet hair open and smiled at the camera. The poet's attention is drawn towards his mother's face, which is described as a sweet face. The photograph was taken long before the poet was born, and the poet calls their feet as terribly transient, as they were so young by then and now they had grown older. On the other hand, the sea which touched their feet has changed less. So, transient feet over here, we have a transferred epithet, literary device. We have alliteration in the line stood still, and through there, consonant is being repeated. And my mother's, there is also three alliteration. I'll repeat again: stood still, through there, and my mother's. So these are the three alliteration. And transient feet is an transferred epithet. Let's go to the line 10 to 13. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach, the sea holiday. Snapshot means a photograph. So after 20-30 years later, the mother of the poet would laugh at the photograph. She would tell the poet to look at her cousins Betty and Dolly and how their parents had dressed all three of them up for the beach, and they were planning actually to take a photograph beforehand, and this photograph was taken by the uncle. Let's go and read line 14 to 15. Was her past, mine is her laughter, both wry with labored ease of loss. Wry means ironic, mocking. The poet recalls the sea holiday was her mother's favorite moment from the past, while the poet's favorite moment from the past was her mother's laughter. Both the women are thinking about those past memories which they cannot relive again. They are trying their best to adjust to what they have lost. So over here, labored ease, the literary device is oxymoron, wherein two opposite things have been mentioned. Line 16 to 19. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of these circumstances there is nothing to say at all. It's silence silences. So in the above lines, the poet says that her mother died 12 years ago, the same age her mother was in the photograph. And whenever the poet thinks of her mother's death, She cannot explain what effect she has of her mother's death, and death has silenced her mother, which has also left her speechless. So this is the poem A Photograph by Shirley Cholson.